sir, but yes, I'm going to. Without a blue
You
shirt.
didn't want to say I have a blue jacket on, I know that.
Couldn't tell.
Dr. Curlin, I'm always troubled when physicians bring out the Hippocratic Oath as preventing you from assisting a patient in dire need for medical aid and dying, because the Hippocratic Oath goes back 500 years before Christ, when there was no anesthesia. It's often cited as do no harm, and that means that you cannot be complicit in facilitating a patient's death. However, there are a couple of practices where doctors routinely and ethically, consistent with the AMA standards, participate in bringing about a patient's death. I'm talking about withdrawal of life support at the patient's request. That is a constitutional right since 1990. You are willingly assisting that patient in pulling the plug, knowing imminently he will die. More ominously, there's the practice of terminal sedation. Terminal sedation, as Dr. Quill called it, palliative sedation, was given a sanction in Quill versus Vacco, Luxembourg versus Washington, as a way of excusing aid and dying. And this is a practice where doctors, sometimes on their own initiative, put a patient under sedation to a point of terminal sedation with withdrawal of hydration and nutrition. I just find it very troubling that a practice that borders on euthanasia is accepted by the AMA as perfectly ethical, and yet you have troubles with allowing the patient to dictate the time and terms of his exiting life. And one last thing, you said that if a doctor was not allowed to bring a patient back into health, he should pull back from the societal norms, force him that way. But let's keep in mind, we're talking in all of the states that were cited with a patient who's got less than 6 months to live. You're not going to bring him back. This is not a patient that's temporarily depressed, wants to commit suicide because he just broke up with his girlfriend or something, or he got fired. This is a patient who looks reality in the face, says, at best I have 6 months, every day getting worse. Please let me end my life on my terms, doctor. He's asking you for help, and you're turning your back to him.
So that, I'm not sure there was a question there, but I will say the Hippocratic Oath, it's not a sacred text. All right, didn't drop down from the sky in gold. Insofar as it's been persuasive to centuries of physicians, it's because it's reflecting something that people have thought was eminently reasonable, which is that the physician should be oriented toward the health of those who are sick, and that the physician, as a person who carries power, who has to ask people to take their clothes off, that's why the oath says no sexual interactions with patients, that has to hear their secrets, don't divulge, no confidentiality, and that has to use tools for people who are very sick and vulnerable, needs to have these boundaries so that they can be trusted to care for them when they're sick. That's why it's been persuasive. The issue of terminal sedation is, it's not, if doctors are out there using sedation as a covert way to get people dead, just know that I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think the doctor should never be intending to bring about the death of their patient. And withdrawal of life support does not require making the patient's death part of your plan and your intention at all. That's why it's so widely accepted. That's why the Catholic Church accepts it, and why Jewish communities allow for it, and so on.
Certainly a terminal extubation, though, most of the time. There are sink or swim extubations, right? When you take somebody off of life support, and,
Sure.
and there's a reasonable possibility that they are going to breathe, they're not sure, and that's really when your intent is, your hope is that they're going to breathe, but you think they may not, but you're going to try to give them every opportunity to breathe. There's also a terminal extubation. When a patient is dying, they've got a really bad disease, something horrible has happened, and their knowledge is that they're going to die when you take them off the ventilator. If you took them off the ventilator against their will, you would be killing them. So they are going to die if you take them off, and your job is to keep that as comfortable as possible. If somebody has the audacity to say that I know that I would really rather be dead than in this circumstance, we're still going to help them in this way. And we're not going to say, well, you can say that, but my intent in taking you off was not to help you in that. I would really wish, you might say, I wish you wouldn't say that, But in point of fact, saying that is just part of the process. You want people to be honest about what they really want.
I agree you want them to be honest. Let's be very, very brief here. If I remove a ventilator from someone, there's many times I've removed ventilators, I don't think they're likely to die. I know with almost absolute certainty they're gonna die. So how, is that then part of my intention? Well, I mean, this again, if you take intention seriously, no. If you think intention is all just kind of a psychological way of coping, then yes. But a key distinction for me is if I were to remove that ventilator and the person were to continue to breathe, would I think I have failed? Have I failed in to bring about what I propose to do? If the answer is yes, then you do intend to kill them or intend for them to die, and you shouldn't. But that's not the intention of doctors generally. The intention is we acknowledge this ventilator's not doing any good. We know that the family has asked us to remove it or given us permission to remove it. We're removing the ventilator. We know the person's gonna die, but that's not, our plan is to remove the ventilator, not to see that they die.
These are probably doctors dancing on a pin, you know?
But obviously it matters. It obviously matters, clinically.
Okay, I think I saw a hand. I'm worried when I'm pointing in the middle. It would be nice to have a question, Dr. Quill, too.
I do have a question for Dr. Quill, and it involves boundaries. So existential suffering is a driver for physician aid in dying. Do you think it has to be limited to patients with terminal conditions, or can it be individuals who experience suffering related to chronic illness? I think of frailty in older adults. And in a similar vein, can it extend to surrogate decision makers? So those with dementia who have said, I would never want to live with advanced dementia, stated in a living will, express it to their families, should their loved ones be able to use that option?
Yeah, so for me personally, and I can only answer this for me personally, two anchors are, one is terminal illness, and one is the presence of physical suffering relating to that illness. Now again, it has to be some suffering that's physical. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. It may be predominantly existential. But terminal illness is a clear anchor for this, because the patient is going to die anyway. Because otherwise, you're ending up in the world of chronic illness, and that's a world that's a very complicated world. I take care of a number of people who would love to have, who say they would like to have this options, who have chronic illness, and we talk month after month after month about that, right? And I say, I hear what you're saying. It's not something that I can help you with. I can help you address your suffering. I can't help you in this way. But if we're addressing suffering in the terminally ill, I don't think we can exclude existential suffering, because existential suffering is going to be a piece of this puzzle. And it's particularly a piece of the puzzle in people who want this option, because they're often the people who are dying really with overwhelming physical problems are going to be helped to die in other ways, okay? Not going to be assisted dying. We're going to be providing sedation. We're going to be providing aggressive symptom management. We're going to be doing things that are probably going to, 2-week waiting periods like what you have to have in Oregon is too long with overwhelming physical suffering. So it's a complicated box.